There are steps that is very helpful in designing a statistical analysis plan. The first one is start to draft a mock abstract, working with just half a page. This step, we begin at the conclusions, which is expected to obtain after we finish the study. So that means not only a very simple like half a page, but actually it is just a few lines, just like one to three sentences in the conclusion. Then if it is promising, proceed only if the conclusions add something new. Then for this you need to do a little literature search, to ensure that your conclusions is really add something to the knowledge. It needs to be generalizable to the larger populations, not very locally specific. Otherwise, it will be just a report, not a research. And it needs to lead to a good recommendations to solve the problems or to do a further good research. And after that, we can plan the statistical design backwardly. So this is the first step. If the first step is not good, it is really not fun to proceed, and we learn a little from that. Step 2, after you have a good abstract which has no data or no result yet, you can expand from half a page to about 5 to 10 pages in the format of the manuscript without the real results, so-called mock manuscript. It is nothing, just copy the half a page to the sections of the manuscript and add details in each section. Especially you need to design the tables for that results, which is called dummy tables or mock tables. Sometimes we plan to have the figures, graphs as well. In the result sections, we really add more about this, so that is why it's expand to 5 to 10 pages. Usually we will rely on the structures of the manuscript required by the target journals. Then we're going to submit the paper after we finish the study. And the last steps that is essential is, if you prepare to proceed for data collections, that means you have no data yet, you proceed to expand from the mock manuscript of about 5 to 10 pages to a longer paper called a research proposal. This also follow the formats required by the sponsor or the granting agency. So if you already have data at hand, that you have a database, for example, like disease registry or the cohort, you might start like that, and then after you have a promising manuscript, you can proceed to the data analysis and then complete a full, not a mock, a full manuscript. But if no data available, proceed to the proposal, and then conduct the study until you get the data, and then you complete the mock manuscript later. In some projects, the sponsor required the full study report, or FSR. That is not the manuscript. That means one project could have more than one manuscript, but has only one full study report. I will not put in details here, but I will provide the example of these materials at the end of the class. So these are just an essential step that is very useful to guide us to plan statistical analysis in a very careful and appropriate way, relevant to the research and very logically consistent with the structure. Step 1 we will complete in this lecture about the draft mock manuscript. As I always emphasize, start here. So start at the conclusions. Make it quantifiable and easy to know, easy to think of what is the outcome or the endpoint or the dependent variable. So these two things in mind, we will have a good conclusions. It will help the audience to know where to look for about the evidence, if we put it like that. It will be quantifiable if we say something like, this vaccine can prevent AIDS, can prevent HIV infections, for example, because these terms can quantifiable in terms of we can conclude that it can prevent only we have the evidence of how large of the prevention fractions. So that means quantified by the vaccine efficacy. Or put it more easier, like green tea reduce weight, quantifiable means we will looking for weight reduction due to using green tea, for example. But if not this way, like green tea is good, how can we quantify good? They are not clear, so this is not a good way. That's an example. Easy to know the outcome, as I said, reduce weight. Weight is the outcome, for example. Okay, so start here, make it like that. After that, link to the next sections further the results. And the essential part of that is you need to specify the main findings. So if you have not much time, just have only one sections here in red, not complete all sections, not necessary at the first step. And make sure you have present both the statistics from the sample and the parameters or the 95% confidence interval that would be obtained in the populations. The p-value is optional, so this format is essential. Put somewhere. Whatever you understand about this, put it. How can you know? First, at least you know that this is the general format. Then this lecture will give you more details about what should be in your study that you put in this conclusion. If you're still not clear, the workshop that we have face-to-face discussions, or when you consult your nearby statistician, you will get the answer because you have the principle, you have a strong background. This one. After that, the outcome determine many things like sample size, also statistical methods for that. Identify these things here in method sections. So I emphasize in identify type of the primary outcome. It's fall into what categories in 4? Continuous or categorical or numerical count or survival, because this lead to both the selections of methods and sample size calculations. And then consider if the outcome is correlated among observations or dependency among observations or not. The details should be here in the design section. Provide details that essential for statistics. So these are all details so that we can plan statistical analysis in the correct way. That means we select the most appropriate statistical method and calculate the sample size correctly. You see, step 1, if you draft a mock abstract in a good way like that, it will provide a very good guide to draft statistical analysis plan, which is actually here, embedded here in the abstract, and also there in the next step about manuscript. Even not separate set of materials called statistical analysis plan, but just embedded there. It is really helpful. In some large study like multinational study, they need to write in a separate materials a statistical analysis plan. They really need to be based on this way to get a very good plan. But maybe more details of this. So tips number 1 for statistics is the outcome determines statistical methods, as I cover quite heavily in the lectures about overview statistics. That is, if we know that it is a continuous outcome, we go for mean. Categorical is about proportions, count is about rate, survival is about survival, risk of events or median survival time. So all these lead to a different statistical methods. Please don't worry if you don't know anything here. What I like you to know is just type of outcome is about this. If you know this, there is a guide, or people can help about how to select appropriate statistical methods. Just that. But if you have time to study more and more, you have a strong ground of understanding to go further about what should be your method of analysis for your research. And tips number 2 is about sample size calculation. This is actually the very common need of the researchers that comes to statisticians about how can I calculate for the sample size. But usually it is very difficult to give an answer without the steps that I have been talking about so far. because the sample size calculations really based on what statistical methods being used to answer or to analyze the data for answering the primary research question, like sample size for linear regression if continuous, to get the mean difference, if logistic regressions, if categorical, to get the odds ratio. You really need what magnitude of effect to be presented to know about method of analysis and method of sample size calculations.